that separate you, but there's a passion that's going on around here, and I'll explain. Even the fact that our county is enjoying our You broke her heart. Way to go. Just a mean reporter.
The entire, it's time to.
Mr.
Tarkanian,
yes.
what did you think of the Scott Brown
It's very
election
exciting.
in Massachusetts?
Very exciting. Very exciting. I love to hear from you guys why you think you were so successful. What do you think that you were so successful?
Can I interject something? Are you asking that question?
Yeah, I was asking that question.
I answer it, but
go ahead. Go ahead. Give an answer.
I think that the country's spending too much money. I am thoroughly disgusted. My grandchildren are going
we got to talk to the camera. Right,
against that when I thought they put in one of the bills.
so you're against work in Nevada?
I'm against mafia museums in Vegas.
I agree with you. I'm just stating that. And you were going to say what?
I think the victory in Massachusetts is the people are fed up with both parties. The Republicans are as arrogant as the Democrats. I mean, we need to get back to take care of the economy. If America goes bankrupt, we don't need health care and jobs. There won't be any jobs in America. And everybody wants to do all their political posturing and pandering. It's collusion, corruption, and cronyism in the last 10 or 15 years.
Corruption, cronyism, what's the first?
Collusion.
Collusion.
Yeah. And I said, that's all I call the 3 C's. And I said, I watch Fox News, and I watch a little of Glenn Beck, but I get just anxiety attacks because America is fed up with politics as usual. And we need to get back to the basic values. My grandfather told me when I was a little kid, he said, politically correct will ruin the Constitution as we know it. And he said, I didn't know what it was back in the 40s. He was 17 years a state senator and then Phil 2 years the governor. And then in the 60s, before he passed away, I was out of college, we talked about politically correctness. And I can see today with our court appointment stuff how we're single-handedly destroying American values and our constitutional rights. And it doesn't get any simpler than that.
And Steve and I were just talking the other day, and the basis of our campaign, our little, you know how you have these little themes, taglines. Ours is common sense instead of political correctness, and that's what this is.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what I think we're seeing a lot of problems coming in, is that our politicians are losing their sense of common sense.
If you guys talk anymore, I can't even speak, you're going to say my whole speech.
Well,
I'm just joking with you. No,
I absolutely agree with you. I think common sense has just gone by the wayside. It's whatever they can get. It's what power they can grab into. They don't look at us Joes schmoes down here who are working our what's off in order to make a better life for our children and our grandchildren and to help our elderly parents. But the government wants to come in and take 40 to 70% of it. I want to be able to earn $300,000 a year without the government coming in and taking half of it.
Amen.
I don't see anything wrong with that. If you can be a billionaire, be a billionaire. You have a right to your money. You have a right to that. It's got to be a common sense theme here. This is America. It isn't Venezuela. And I just don't know what's wrong with our politics anymore, our politicians. I used to be able to look up to them. I trusted so many, and I've known very many. And I tell you honestly, there isn't anybody on that hill, and that's both sides of the party. I want them to understand. Both sides of the party, I don't trust you. And I'm watching you real well right now, and I think that's who won in Massachusetts. I don't trust you. And you need to be smaller. Get out of my pocket.
Amen.
Amen. And you're listening, God, you're listening.
Anybody else? I love these comments. They're really great. Anybody else want to go on tape? All right. With that, I'm going to get started. My name's Danny Tarkanian. I'm running for the United States Senate. I hope that's why you're here, not the pizza. I came here with my wife and 4 children. My wife's in the car with a newborn baby son, Jerry. He was born December 17th, our first son of the family. My oldest daughter and middle daughter, well, my oldest daughter and her twin, Lois and Eva are in the car with her. This is Ashley. She's my worker. She is not a union worker. She works through the lunch hour. She's not asking for time and a half.
So are you saying you support child labor?
That's my report, of course. Right?
No, I support it to have an unroll. I believe in child labor.
Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I was raised in Nevada. I moved to Nevada when I was 11, when my father got the head coaching job at UNLV. I've lived there for most of my life. I went to college at UNLV and I played basketball for my father there. And I had an opportunity to be a member of his first #1 ranked basketball program in the school's history, and I'm very proud of that. After graduating from college at UNLV, I went to law school in San Diego. Came back from law school, practiced law for 7 years. I got married, as I mentioned, to my wife Amy, and we now have 4 wonderful children. And I now run 2 small businesses in Nevada. One is a commercial real estate company. It's a family-owned company that we have some office or retail space that we're trying to lease out. And we're struggling just like all these other people around the country that are facing these tough economic times. My brother and I also run a nonprofit company called the Tarkanian Basketball Academy, where we try to work with underprivileged children in Nevada and teach them the proper skills and lessons that you can learn, not only in sports, but the life lessons that you carry on with you. With that, excuse me, but my dream growing up was always to get into public service. And it's really interesting to hear so many people talk about how they're upset at this politician or that politician. And to me, that's the reason why you're upset, because they're politicians. They are in office to be either very partisan for their side, to move up the party leadership ladder like Harry Reid did, or even being a party insider where you put the interests of your party higher than the interest of the people you represent. See, my desire in running for office was always to be a public servant. I want to serve the public and accomplish positive things for the people that I represent. Senator Laxalt from Nevada, and also, you may not know, but Governor DeBajan, Californians would know that. Governor DeBajan was a governor of California in the 80s. Senator Laxalt, when he was a senator here in the 80s, you know, they inspired me. I just watched it in amazement, all the great things they were able to do when they were in office, acting as our public servants. And I always dreamed of doing that when I got older. My mother, who has been in public service now 24 years, 12 as a school board member, and now 12 as a city councilwoman, she is a public servant. You cannot influence her, you cannot taint her. She is a Democrat, and we have some disagreements, but she is as honest as you can get. And I look up to that. And I hope that when I get older and I'm retired, my kids will have the same feelings for me as I have for what my mother has done and what Senator Laxalt has done. And that is my inspiration to get in office. In 2004, when I moved back to Las Vegas, I decided I wanted to run for the United States Senate. The State Senate. And I was going to get into that race. And if you remember, for the people who have lived here in Nevada for a long period of time, that in 2004, every statewide Republican decided not to run against Harry Reid. In March of that last year, I was approached by the National Republican Senatorial Committee to go back to Washington, D.C. and meet with people about running against Reid. I came back into Las Vegas, and within 2 days, I had 2 very close personal friends of my family that were also friends of Reid that contacted me and said, "Danny, why would you go back to D.C. and think about running against Harry Reid? You have no idea what you've done. Harry Reid is so upset that he is going to destroy you. He is going to tear your character apart, and you will never be able to run for political office." And I was naive. I said, you know, besides a few little young indiscretions everybody has, I didn't think there was anything he could possibly come up with, and I wasn't really worried about it. Well, I did not run against him. I wasn't in a position at that time to do so. I ran for the state senate, and then 2 years later, I ran for the Secretary of State. Both races, I was beating my opponents quite substantially coming into early voting. In races that I really was a big underdog. And then when early voting started, there were these attack pieces that came down that said I was involved in telemarketing fraud. And they just hammered me on those things. And as crazy as it sounded to me, I said, no one's going to believe that. You know, here's my daughter Lois, my oldest daughter. She's here. Okay, close the door. I didn't think anybody would believe this stuff because it's so ridiculous. Why is anybody going to run for office and put themselves through that scrutiny if they really did those things? But people believed it. I lost those races. Instead of backing down to Reed and saying, you know what, I can't handle this, he's too tough for me, he's humiliating me, I came back tougher and stronger. I wasn't going to quit. I sued the guy who made the initial comments, Senator Snyder, and in July of this past year, I won the first defamation lawsuit by any public official in the state of Nevada. At least I've been told that. It's the first one ever. I won that, and I was able to put those allegations, those attack pieces of what, okay, I got to take a step back so you understand the connection. During the trial, I learned that all of these attack pieces were generated from opposition research. Harry Reid's opposition researcher did, a guy named Cooper from Reno. Reid's op research guy created these allegations that they used against me to cost me those first 2 races. Then I found out at the trial that Leif Reid, Harry Reid's son, was the only witness against me to try to substantiate those allegations. Reid's hands were all behind those allegations. When I won that defamation lawsuit, it was in July of this past year, the end of the month, I decided that in there I was going to run against Reid in this U.S. Senate race. Not one of the elected officials from our state party, the Republican Party, had gotten into the race. Dean Heller had just decided he wasn't going to run, and Krolicki was under indictment and decided he wasn't. So I got into the race. I had no idea what was going to happen or how I would be received. And in fact, I got into the race. It's sort of ironic or funny the way it happened. My dad was getting out of the hospital. He had a major surgery where he almost didn't make it. And he was in the hospital for 6 weeks. And we were picking him up. I won the defamation lawsuit on Monday. I picked him up out of the hospital on Thursday, and he had his birthday on Saturday. So I didn't want to tell anybody what I was going to do, because I figured my dad would have a heart attack. And it got leaked out in the media on Saturday, the day of his birthday, that I was going to run. And I didn't want to mention my dad's party, and nobody else did either. And all of a sudden, for a week, my mother wouldn't speak to me. And I didn't know what was wrong. I figured she probably wasn't real happy with me. My dad, on the other hand, he told me he was proud and was behind me. But my mother would speak to me for a week. And afterwards, she called me over to the house and she said, Danny, why would you run against Harry Reid? You don't understand how powerful he is and how much money he has. He's going to destroy you. It's going to end your political career. And then the next week she calls me over to the house and she said, Danny, I've been speaking to a lot of my political friends, my Democrat friends. They're not very happy with Reid. They're not going to vote for him. And then the next time I met with her, she said, Dan, I can't believe this. I got a lot of Democrat friends that say they're going to vote for you over Reid. And now every time I see her, she says, Danny, you just got to win this primary. If you can win this primary, you're going to win this race. That's the sentiment you were asking the people in Clark County. How are they feeling about Reid? Democrats in Clark County are feeling the same way as you out here are feeling. They're all frustrated. They're all worried. They're all concerned with the direction he's taking this party. I got into the race. I had no idea how I would do. There's been 12 polls that have come out, and I've beat Reid outside the margin of error in every single one. I'm the only Republican candidate to do that. And the best part about that is the numbers are getting higher and higher. I'm beating them by 12 and 14% the last 2 polls, even though Reid, and those are the highest anybody's been beat Reid in the poll. And those have happened after Reid has spent over $2 million in television time. So he's not, the money he spent isn't going to change the opinion people have of Reid. Now also good for me is I'm also winning the Republican primary in the latest polls by 2%. It's going to be a very close race. We got some good candidates in it. I believe I'm the best candidate. More importantly, my wife believes it. So I hope you will. And I'm going to tell you why, what I stand for, and I hope you can make up your opinion on that. We all agree that we have some serious problems our country's facing, and Harry Reid's answer to those problems is to get government more involved in our companies and our individual decisions and our businesses, and spend more government money, and government will be the solution to all these problems. See, I believe the complete opposite. I believe in the foundation of our country, what our Constitution was based upon. Our Constitution was based upon individual responsibility and individual liberty. Individuals should have the opportunity to make decisions, but at the same time, you have responsibilities that you have to take when you make those decisions. We had companies that made decisions that ended up putting them in a position of going bankrupt. And instead of holding them responsible for those decisions, we created the first bailout. And we said, you are too big to fail, so even though you had the individual liberty to make the decisions you wanted, we're not going to hold you responsible with those individual responsibility that will make you not do those things again. So we bailed them out. I was completely against the first bailout. I believe it was a Band-Aid on a sore that is festering and festering, is going to get worse and worse when it's all over. I believe that first bailout led to the second bailout, that led to the third bailout, and this is where we're at today. We have a deficit of in excess of $14 trillion. They just raised the debt ceiling 1.9 million 2 days ago. $14 million is the total GDP of the whole United States for a full year, and we have that as a deficit right now. Our spending is so out of control that even the communist Chinese are calling for restraint. It's a scary time. It's a scary time for you, it's scarier for our children, and something has to be done to change that. Harry Reid believed that our economy wasn't working. Well, we all agree the economy's not working. We need to create some jobs, get the economy going. His answer was an $800-some billion stimulus package, where most of the money was going to go to create more government jobs. And of these government jobs, most of them were these pork barrel spending jobs. See, I believe that all pork is wrong in the federal budget. I don't believe the federal government has the constitutional right, nor the ethical right, or it's just not right for them to take money, taxpayer dollars from 49 states, and use it to pay for one project in one state that's only benefiting people in that state. If the people of Florida want to build a bridge so the turtles can cross the bridge and not get hit on the road by the cars, let the people of Florida pay for that. Why should we and the other 49 states pay for that state project? The problem we have is when you allow one state project to go forward, those people in Florida, they may say, wow, this is great. Look how much pork we just got in for our state. They got to pay the price when all the other states get it. And over a period of time, everybody's paying this penalty. Now, I'm running a very, very contested primary against a lady named Sue Loudon. And I will not vote negative, and she's not going to go negative on any personal tax. But there's two substantial differences that she has and I have. I believe the first bailout was completely wrong and would never have voted for it. She was quoted in the Nevada appeal last Sunday as saying she could not say she would not have voted no for it. There wouldn't have been a hesitation for me. I would have voted no for it. She believes that Harry Reid is failing our state because he's not bringing home enough pork for the state, that we're only getting 65 cents for every dollar. I don't believe any pork should be brought back to the state. I will go back to Washington, D.C. and work with Senator Mint, Senator Cornyn, Senator Burr, and some of these other senators that are now rallying our country to eliminate all pork. Those are some distinctions. How can we turn the economy around? Okay, well, let's get to health care. That's the next thing they did. After the bailouts or the stimulus package, the next thing is the health care plan. Harry Reid has told us, and he's quoted as saying, that once the public understands this health care plan, the public opinion will turn back around and be in favor of it, and they're going to vote for us Democrats when they do that. If he really meant that, then why did he hold the hearings on C-SPAN and let the whole country see what was going on with the health care plan? If he really meant that, why didn't he take a vote on Christmas Eve to rush it through before anybody had a chance to read the bill? If he really meant that, why did they have to put it in 2,000 plus pages that is so convoluted that even they can't understand what it says? If he really meant that, why did he have to bribe one senator after another senator after another senator to get the bill passed? His bill, his proposed health care plan, would cost anywhere between the $900 billion the Democrats say to the $2.4 billion the Republicans say over 10 years. It would raise taxes $400 billion. It would cut Medicaid by $500 billion. It would create upwards of 72 new government agencies, and it would really, what he claims, it would insure 30 million people that aren't insured now. Well, sure. Maybe it would, but of those 30 million, 9 million plus, or there's millions of them, are young kids who don't want the insurance. They want to take the risk, the individual responsibility we talked about. They want to take the risk that they're not going to have a catastrophic injury. They don't want to pay for it, but we're going to force them to. Then there's millions and millions more are people that are illegal immigrants that don't deserve that insurance. In reality, there's 9 million people that want the insurance that can't afford it, and this insurance package would cover it. Well, hell, let's just take the $1 trillion that estimate that could cost. That's $11,000 a year for every person we're insuring. Well, why don't we just buy them insurance and get out of the business? The reason the Democrats agree to push this plan is the Democrats want control over 1/6 of our economy, which is what the health insurance industry is. I came out, I got into the race in August, and right when Harry Reid refused to meet, with you people, the people he serves, to discuss his health care plan, he said you were evil mongers if you disagreed with him. So I held my own health care town hall. I had 300 plus people show up. It was the first week I got in the race. I mean, it was a complete crapshoot how I would handle it. But I said, I'm not going to run a conservative race. If I'm running against the Senate Majority Leader, I'm going to take some risks. So I get out there, 300 some people show up. Many of them are Reid supporters. I found out later that there was an email blast, and I got a copy of it from Reid's campaign, sent out to all of his supporters saying, go to Danny Tarkanian's town hall and ask him tough questions about the health care plan. He won't be able to answer them. Well, I gave them this response, and they couldn't come up with a reason against it. We can reduce our health care costs substantially, upwards to 50%, if we do 4 simple things, which are market-driven and includes tort reform. The first one, come on in, buddy. I'll tell you what, she's got the smile. She come in, and you can't get mad at that. Okay, the 4 points to substantially reduce our health care costs. The first one is you allow people to purchase insurance across state lines. How's it going? Thanks for coming. Good to see you. If you allow people to purchase insurance across state lines, you're going to create more competition in the insurance industry, and every time we create more competition in our economy, we create a better product at a lower cost. Currently in Nevada, 70% of all insurance premiums are written by one company, United and Sierra Health. If we create more competition, you're going to get a better product at a lower cost. The second one is a tort reform we discussed. If we cap non-economic damages, we would help the doctor. It would stop the doctors from having to produce to do preventive medicine, so that they prevent lawsuits that they would have. Do you realize how much money doctors spend a year on preventive medicine? It blew me away when I heard that. Between $180 and $210 billion a year in preventive medicine. This is my wife, Amy, and our youngest son, Jerry. Okay. So, allow people to purchase insurance across state lines, tort reform. The third area is to enforce a federal law where Medicare is a payee of last resort. There are currently 13% of all Medicare recipients who have private insurance. And according to federal law, the private insurance is to pay the first portion of it, and Medicare pays what's left over. The federal government doesn't do a good enough job of going back to those insurance companies and making them pay their fair share. They just say it's taxpayer dollars, let them pay for it. The fourth area is if we would reduce, if not eliminate, the state mandates that are in insurance policies. For you that don't understand how state mandates work, here we have each state in the country, they tell the citizens of their state that when you buy health insurance, you have to have this coverage in insurance with this cost, whether you want it in insurance or not. It's contrary to everything our country is based upon. Where you go out, you work hard, and with those hard-earned dollars, you get to pick and choose what product you want based upon the benefits you get and the costs you get. We have 2,000 state mandates around the country. Nevada is at the very top of that list of 56. What do you think what percentage of your insurance premiums do you think state mandates are? Blew me away when I heard this. 20 to 50% of your insurance premiums are state mandates, so Nevada with the highest has to be close to 50%. Get rid of those, let each individual pick and choose what they want to buy in insurance like we do with every other product. And the other area that we can help with the problems that we have with the health insurance industry is get away from the employer-based insurance plan to an individual-owned insurance plan, a portable plan where that individual can take that insurance with them to a new job that they get, if they leave the job or if they get fired or if they're unemployed, a portable plan. The way you do that is if an employer wants to buy insurance with an employee, encourage them to pay money into the health savings account. That individual employee can then pick and choose whatever plan they want with whatever company they want, and they can keep that plan with them from job to job to job. They would never lose it. We should be encouraging individuals who are self-employed or even unemployed to buy their own insurance. One of the reasons people don't do that is they don't get the same tax break employers get when they provide insurance for their employees. if you're self-employed and you want to buy insurance for your only employee, yourself, you don't get a tax break. But if you're an employer, you buy for your employees, you get a tax break. Why is that? Isn't that one of the craziest inconsistencies that you've heard of? And have you heard Harry Reid or any other person in this healthcare debate, Republican or Democrat, discuss that? It's a common sense proposal. It should be eliminated, and it should be done immediately. If we do those things, we could really improve our healthcare system. It's not going to solve all the problems. We've got problems that are going to take years and years to solve or minimize, but it sure would solve it. It sure would make it much better than we have now, and it won't create any of those problems that we've had with Harry Reid's program. You know, the ironic thing about Reid's healthcare plan is, according to his plan, if you don't buy insurance, you get taxed. But then if you buy too good of insurance, you get taxed. You get taxed unless you have insurance that they really like, I guess, you're going to get taxed. Now, there is a way around that. Just become a government employee or a union worker, and then you don't get taxed. Is that amazing? Yeah. I mean, that's Harry Reid for you.
Well, how can they even devise any kind of health care bill when they are exempt from it themselves? They have no idea or clue as to what the everyday common citizen goes through.
Sure, and that's one of the main questions I was asking you every time. Again, this is now our 8th or 9th place we've been on this world tour, and one of the main questions I ask is, would you as a U.S. Senator pass a health care bill and then not accept that health care coverage and make your constituents have instead of you? And I said, absolutely not. As a public servant of you, I would be obligated, and I would say it's our obligation to have the same health insurance coverage we're trying to have our citizens have. And that goes the same way with our retirement plan. You know, they have a great retirement plan, 100% compensation when they leave office, but then you don't have the same when you're not. I mean, I think if we're going to go back and represent you as a public servant, we should treat ourselves the same way we treat you, and I would be in favor of that. Let me open this up to questions, but that was the first one, I guess. Any other questions about other stuff? No. You're at the end. All right.
I had a question. Sorry.
With regards to this health insurance, portable or otherwise, I've been in a job through the years mining, and so layoffs are inevitable, and sometimes the worst, like last year than others. But when I get into an unemployment situation, buying insurance is absolutely last thing. I mean, you've got to put food on the table and try and make your mortgage and things like that. So, in your scheme of things, what happens when a guy does get into a layoff, and especially a prolonged one?
Well, again, the only thing we can do is we have the safety net. I'm sure you're probably above the safety net where you're not falling under the Medicaid benefits and so forth. If you do fall under Medicaid, you get your insurance. You can get insurance from that government agency until you get hired again.
Right.
And if we need to raise that level, I'd be much more in favor of raising that level to cover more people, particularly in these tough economic times. I'd rather spend the money that way than spending it on these 72 new government agencies with all these other things that are going on with it. Well, if we're going to try to cover more people who can't afford it right now during these tough economic times, raise the availability under the programs that are already there.
Well, and I agree. I don't like the way that the Democrats are going, except I just don't have any bright ideas to go back up.
Well, would it do any good anyway? They are always telling us how, oh, we want a bipartisan, you know, and to get the Republicans involved, and they accuse the Republicans of turning their backs on their, you know, meetings for health care and all, but they don't even let the Republicans in there. It's all done behind closed doors.
This past year, the policies the administration has put through, led by Harry Reid, has certainly been a one-sided affair because they had the 60 votes. Now, with Scott Brown's victory, they're going to have to be more receptive and try to go court the Republican side now, and we'll see what the results are. There isn't an easy answer for all these problems. This is particularly the healthcare problems. It's one that's been there for a long, long time. My point is, we have a plan that reads proposed, these are the benefits you're going to get, 9 million people covered, and this is the problems you're going to have with it. So the proposals I've had would help, but it won't cover all the situations that you talked about. Any other questions? Yes?
What's your stand on amnesty for illegals?
Yeah. And again, when you ask all the questions you get, that's always one of them that everybody asks. I, like most Republicans that have been discussing the illegal immigration issues, believe that we should secure the borders first, and whether it's a fence or the new technology you have, that's all great, good and well. But if we really want to resolve this problem, a long-lasting problem, and we want it in the easiest way, really the only way possible, you have to take away the incentives of why illegal immigrants are coming into our country. And all to do that, we don't even have to pass any more laws. We just need to enforce the laws that are out there. It is illegal, it is unlawful, or they are not entitled to, however you want to word it. Illegal immigrants are not entitled to taxpayer education. Illegal immigrants are not entitled to taxpayer-funded health care. Illegal immigrants are not entitled nor allowed to be employed here in our country. And if an employer is going to hire somebody, we need to go out and we got to fine them and punish them more than they get a benefit from the hiring. You take the incentives away from people to come into our country, they're not going to come in and they're going to leave voluntarily. Again, all illegal immigrants may not leave, but you're going to solve a good portion of the problem we're having.
Thank you, because most politicians are not statesmen. They dance around the issue because they don't be labeled a racist. That's not a racist question. It's a responsibility as Americans.
No.
That's right.
Common sense over political correctness, right?
Yes.
That's common sense over and let me tell you, what you said there is so important. I use the word public servant, but basically what we are, if I'm fortunate to represent you, we are public servants that go back to Washington, D.C. to serve you, but we need to be statesmen when we're back then. I firmly believe this, and I see this movement going on around the country. The American people, and I believe it's here in Nevada, they're tired of these long-term partisan politicians and party insiders. What they really want is an independent voice, someone who's going to go back to Washington, D.C. and fight for what's best for their state and their country and do what's right. And that's what I would do for you if I'm fortunate enough to represent you. You had a question.
Well, you just answered one of them. Okay. So the second one, what do you feel on the concealed weapons permit?
Which issue on it? I believe we have a Second Amendment right that gives us the right to bear arms, and I would vote in favor of upholding that every way possible. What specific issue with the concealed weapon? The one from going from state to state?
States to state, or even the individual has the right to have a concealed weapons?
Well, right now they do have a right, and they have it, unless you're a felon, and I would be in favor of limiting it to violent felons. Going from state to state is the issue that I hear most often, where you may have a concealed weapon permit in Florida, you want to take it to another state, and I believe that should be upheld. I mean, under the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution, if you have a permit from one state, it should be okay in another state. Let me make a comment about the Second Amendment, because that's very important in my race. There's a lady named Jen. No, that was somebody else. There was a lady that has been sending out emails from this area that has been all around the other state attacking me on the Second Amendment position. In my last race, the last 2 days, the second to last day of the race, the Brady people came out and did an auto call endorsing my campaign. And I had no knowledge of that call. I was very upset when I heard it, and I couldn't figure out where it came about. Well, this past December, Sue Loudon's campaign turned over this copy of this auto tape to the Washington Times and wanted them to write a story on it. So the Washington Times reporter called the Brady people and said, "How did you get this information?" And they said, "Well, volunteer in Danny Tarkanian's campaign, a guy named Dan Burdish, contacted us on it." Well, Dan Burdish is a paid consultant on Sue Loudon's campaign now. And so you see the tie in there. And Dan Burdish, at least, was on enough to state in the paper that he did it without my knowledge or consent. I've always been a full supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA and was one before that Secretary of State's race. So I hope that clears it up if any of you do get those kind of emails that are going out there. Yes?
I have a question on something entirely different than that, and that is on
all the water from Ely and other parts of the country going to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that is wrong. As a retired Sierra Pacific employee from a coal-fired power plant, it was pretty obvious to most people in that type of an industry that when Harry Reid came out against the coal-fired power plants in Ely, it was so he could sell the water to his friends in Las Vegas, which is what happened. And I guess part of my question is, how can we, as Nevadans, possibly put coal fire back on the burner? Because contrary to what you read in the media, coal-fired power plants are one of the cleanest you can get, particularly if you're using either wet or dry scrubbers. Some people know what they are, some people don't. But it's a way to get the pollution out of the air before it gets in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the cheapest way you can create megawatts. It's a lot cheaper than hydro's the cheapest, but coal fire is cheaper than most, like your geothermal or your solar power, wind power. Coal is by far cheaper.
With respect to the water issue, what they were proposing, meaning taking the old water from White Pine County in Las Vegas, was just a short-term answer to what is a long-term problem, and it's not the right solution. Now, if you saw the Supreme Court of Nevada just threw that one out, so it doesn't look like that's going to go through. To answer your question about clean coal, I would be a proponent of allowing and encouraging clean coal plants here in Nevada and around the country. My energy philosophy is very simple. We have to get away from our dependence on, can I get some water? Can you get some water? Thanks. We have to get away from the dependence upon the foreign oil right now. And the simple and easiest way to do it is to use the resources we have here in our country, these clean coal plants that we can be building, additional nuclear power plants. Do you know that for us to build a new nuclear power plant, it will take 10 years of permitting before they allow us to start one? But in China, they have 72 planned over the next 10 years. And we want to compete, we have to compete with China in the world economy, but we can't even get one plant started by the time they finish 72. I think we should be drilling offshore for the states that want it. I also believe we should be drilling in Alaska and utilizing our homegrown resources to sustain us during this time period. However, at the same time, we need to continue to invest in these technologies of alternative sources of energy, where we can keep bringing those costs down more and more and more, so that by the time we are running out, we're short of our energy, that we will have these other alternative sources. And it's easy to do. Just think about this. In the late 70s, I was just in high school at the time, but we had that oil embargo by the Middle East. And at that time, the computers were just starting off, and I remember the computers were so big, they were about the size of this room, and they cost so much money. My mom at the same time bought, thank you, a solar energy deal for our house. So they already were talking about that idea. Now, we can get computers that are this small, that are so powerful and so costless, so cheap, because we invested in the technologies. Why haven't we invested more when that first crisis happened with those technologies, sun, wind, geothermal, all those, where we could have had a product now that was much cheaper, more cost efficient, and we would be better off right now. We can't make the same mistake now with the second energy crisis, which is what we're in.
And why was it that we didn't develop those industries? Was because the oil companies and the politicians and everything made sure that they didn't.
And how many of these
special
politicians
interest
are in their
groups.
back pocket to the foreign oil themselves,
Right.
to the
Exactly.
Saudis, to bring me money for my competition, and that's what American energy for Americans, because this is not a safe world. I don't care what everybody tries to say. Those people around the world are not our best friends, and if they could take over us, they do it in a heartbeat, and we need to be able to, if there's a cutoff of our oil, still be able to run what we need to run.
Well, it's really ironic because we are at a state of war. For those of you that may not understand this, there are terrorists that want to destroy our country, take our country back. George Bush had it right We were in a state of war in 2001. First and foremost, we have to stop coddling these war criminals that we find and try them in Guantanamo Bay in a military tribunal and not give them any rights that apply to our U.S. citizens. But with that being said, we are funding these terrorist groups by buying all the oil and turning all of our money over there. I mean, it's incredible that we can't figure that out and not make some changes in those policies.
Mr. Tarkanian,
Yes.
have they ever thought about what if they cut us off? I don't think they've ever thought that. They think that as long as we got the money there for them, they're going to supply it. And that might be some days that they say, no way.
They can do that. They can cut us off so short that they destroy our economy, which would bring us to our knees. And that goes to the ridiculous and irresponsible spending and deficit that we have run up. We have the problems with the Middle East we just mentioned, but what about our competition with China? China holds so much of our country's debt that if they wanted to flood the economy with the notes that they have for us, they would bring our economy to our knees and destroy us. How could we put ourselves, the greatest country in the history of society, in such a vulnerable position? These are the policies that we have seen these past few years, and we are at a really critical time. We are at a critical time, and that's why the importance of this election is absolutely critical.
Yes. What is your feeling on, Harry Reid has been supposedly showing interest in Winnemucca regarding that dump that they're planning to allow California to build? What is your feeling on that?
Harry Reid has shown interest in a lot of projects in Nevada the last few months.
Because he wants our
It's those first 5.5 years that you just got to question where's his interest. Number one, as a federal legislator, we have certain things we can and can't do. And I am a big proponent of state rights, and the federal government is there for a specific limited purpose, and you got to stick to that purpose. With respect to the things we can do now, as we were just discussing earlier, with the environmental protection studies and the agency, we could work through there to see if there are any problems that we could stop this dump from coming in there. After that, it's a state right issue and the zoning issue, and I gotta believe that there's something that can be stopped here within the state and within the county.
So actually, Harry Reid had no, there was
He's
nothing
working
he
through
could
the
do.
EPA is what I'm understanding, is that correct?
USGS.
You're okay. He has some ways, but they're limited. And again, but with Harry and with the philosophy that's in office right now, is let's expand the power of the federal government to get to the results we want. And it may work well for you here in Winnemucca now with the dump, but once that happens, they're going to expand it somewhere else where you may not like it. And again, my philosophy is this, and I want to make this very, very clear. I believe our Constitution created the federal government to do a few specific purposes, and we need to do those things great, and we need to stop trying to solve all the social ills. My dad, when he was a basketball coach, used to say, I wanted my teams to do 1 or 2 things and do them great, and I'd love to play against a team that try to do 5 or 6 things because they can't do any of them well. Well, that's what's happened to our federal government. Instead of focusing our resources on those few things, we're spreading ourselves too thin. Yes, ma'am.
You made a statement that coal and nuclear power, it takes about 10 years for permitting. How do you propose reducing that? I mean, the technology's out there, it's clean. How could we reduce that window to...
Yeah, the point you're making right now is really the basis of our economic plan that I'm going to come out with next week on how to try to create more jobs, okay? We have to create more jobs here in Nevada and outside in this country. One of the main reasons we can't create more jobs are these burdensome regulations that are being imposed upon our industries. Ridiculous regulations that are just tying the hands of our small business people and preventing them from getting started. 2 days ago, we were in Hawthorne. We met a guy at the gas station, ironically. He just saw our sticker on the car and asked if I was running for the state U.S. Senate. And he told me he has a mine he wants to start mining coal, right? Ore. And he said half of it is on the ground right now. I could pick it up, and I got buyers that I can sell it to. I went in for permit with the BLM, and they told me that we are so backlogged, it's gonna take a full year before they can look at it. And then once they do, they said in 7 years, I might be able to get enough permits to get fully going. I said to the guy, how many jobs would you mind have to hire? He said over 300. We're dying for jobs right now. We have regulations that are preventing these people from getting started.
Doesn't the BLMs fall under the TARP money? That's a
Well,
joke.
the yeah. The fact of the matter is, if we are in an international economy, whether we like it or not, that's where we're at. And we, at the same time, we're trying to compete with companies internationally. We're tying the hands of our companies here. We got the greatest workers in the whole world. We've shown that over and over and over again. But we keep making these regulations that are incredibly ridiculous. My family on my mother's side were farmers in the San Joaquin Valley, outside of Fresno. And right now, I talk to farmers there and ranchers there. They don't have the water they need to operate their businesses that they've operated for generations because of the Delta smelt. Our government has decided that the welfare of the Delta smelts are more important than the welfare of these farmers and these cattlemen, and also us who eat their products.
Mr. Tarkanian,
Isn't that
can you eat the
ridiculous?
Delta smell?
What's that?
Can you eat the Delta smell?
No.
Not as, they don't taste as good as the grapes my grandmother's farm brings. The point I'm saying is whether it's best to save Delta smelts or not, you have to look at the cause and effect of what we're doing with it. All these decisions have a cause and effect. They may all sound great, but I mean, I talked to the guy that was trying to do a construction project in Las Vegas where they're down 60–70% of the construction workers. He's been trying to build a project, but because of the desert tortoise issue, he can't get the project off the ground. It's been years. I mean, at what point do we say we need the jobs? People losing their homes, they can't pay their food. We may lose a desert tortoise here or there, but we need to create some jobs, and that's a big part of my economic plan. I'm going to talk about how we have to lessen the burdens and regulations that are on companies. I believe we need to get the federal government, the BLM, to release a good portion of our federal land so we as a state can use it to better our economy. We can take that land, much of it in prime commercial areas, and entice companies to come out here and start working here in the state and create jobs here in the state. I want to take Yucca Mountain, instead of closing it down and wasting the $10, $20, $30 billion we spend into it, I want to turn it into a nuclear reprocessing facility like they do in France and other countries, where we reprocess 95% of the nuclear spent fuel. We'll create thousands of jobs here in Nevada, hundreds of millions of revenue for our state where we desperately need it, and it'll turn UNLV and UNR into a leading research institution. These are all programs that won't cost the taxpayer one additional dollar, won't create one more government agency, and Harry reads against it.
Why not allow the nuclear power plants to regenerate their own spent rods, which was the case, I believe, before Jimmy Carter put a stop on it.
And Jimmy
So
Carter
why don't
passed
you
a lot
have
of
the
stuff.
individual facilities do it instead of Yucca Mountain?
But we've already spent the money in Yucca Mountain, and I'm representing the people of the state of Nevada, and I want to create jobs for the people of the state of Nevada.
So there may be
So
something else we can do with Yucca Mountain
I'm open to, I'd love to hear your suggestions to me. This is a common sense one. There is so small of risk of anything happening out there. They have the safety procedures in place. Nuclear spent fuels travel on our highways every single day, and there hasn't been a nuclear accident since the 70s. So what's the concern? Wouldn't you rather have that here in our state? Maybe Alaska with their pipeline, and Nevada with our reprocessing of nuclear spent fuel. That's just, I'm gonna make this clear too. I am running and I feel so good about this race because I'm talking about things I truly believe in with full conviction. There are gonna be some things that you may not agree with. My wife doesn't agree with everything I say either, and we still get along okay. We still get along okay, but the fact of the matter is, what I'm telling you is what I believe in, and I will try with all my power to get accomplished when I'm in D.C., but there are going to be some things you may not agree with. I had a guy in Fallon yesterday, a kid just getting ready to go to college, and he asked if I was in favor of the plan Obama was going to propose to provide free higher education to everyone in the country. And I had to tell him, no, I'm not in favor of that. Someone's got to pay for that. If we provide it for you, later on you're going to be provided for other people. And there are countries throughout the world that have tried that process, and it has never worked. Don't you think it's a little ironic? And I had a reporter from the Review Journal that was traveling with us over the past 2 days. She just left. She was in Egypt for a bunch of the past few years, and she said Egypt is now privatizing most of their industries because they could do it better that way. We have already seen China's doing that, and Russia's doing that. So while all the other countries are coming to our economic philosophy, we're going to theirs. We're trying to copy outdated methods. Why?
That leads to the question I have on education. Then I firmly believe that our federal government having a nose into our local education is very incorrect, and have regulated our teachers and our families to not teach values that we hold very important. They made it so secular because it's the way the government has to be, but our local areas aren't that way. And I have some really difficult feelings about what's happening in our schools.
I got to get you guys' vote, because everything that I believe that you're telling me right now, part of our economic recovery plan that we're going to send out next week is going to completely downsize the Department of Education. I believe education should be determined by the people in their locality. The federal government shouldn't be involved in that. The only thing we're going to leave in place is some of these programs like the Head Start program and some of these others that are vital to the people who can't afford it. Education should be done here locally. The federal government should not be dictating this. And
that includes textbooks. That includes textbooks.
Includes everything.
Yeah,
But then are we getting funding from the federal government though?
Okay, when we get funding, who pays for that funding?
Well, we do, but that's what I'm saying. If we're getting funding from the federal government, then they feel that they can tell us what we have to do.
That's right.
They're getting funding when they tax you. I feel they should reduce their taxes and leave it to the state, and then the state can fund their own education program with how they want to tax somebody. Why is the federal government involved in that?
Yeah, I don't want to give it to them. Let's leave it in our own communities.
One of the biggest problems we have with education is the government's unfunded mandates. Ask any teacher.
Absolutely.
Ask any
That is
school
part of
board.
it, yes.
And again, that is the federal government's encroachment in areas that they shouldn't be involved in. They want to get involved in all these other areas, so they tell states what, it's not just education, all other areas, healthcare, that they have to provide this type of coverage or this type of product. And you know what? We're not going to even give you the money for it. It's unfunded, so you got to come up with it. But you know what? Even if they gave you the money, all they're going to do is take it from you anyways. And why not leave it to the states to decide what taxes they need to raise to have all of these things? I'm against all unfunded mandates by the federal government.
If the private company tried to do the same thing that the federal government does, like your highway bill, the old 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, it would be called extortion and you would be arrested.
Yes.
That's what our own federal government is doing to us. 545 people control the rest of this country.
I agree completely with you.
It's not right.
What concerns me about universities and stuff like this, and this didn't happen in my year, but now these professors don't go to school and teach their kids. They get somebody that is, what do you call them?
Graduate assistant.
Yeah, graduate assistant. They stay home and they write books. They're about their life history or something like that. Textbooks. I think that those professors should not be allowed to do that. They should have to require to attend so many days in the year that they teach. And another thing that I've noticed about the Congress and the House of, or the Senate, the Congress, is some of those senators don't even show up. I mean, maybe they might show up for 5 days a year or something like that. That is ridiculous.
Well, of course, and both things you said are so obvious they shouldn't even have to be stated.
I know, of course, I believe in term limits too, so.
Okay, and that's another
I
question.
was going to ask you that. If you were elected and you got back into Washington, I mean, how are you going to be able to make a difference in a lot of like common sense things like the majority, I'm not gonna say all of them, because I don't know all of them, but it seems that the majority of our congressmen and senators and all, it's a job to them. It's not, they're not there to serve us and do what they were elected to do. They look at it as a, you know, oh good, I get this great retirement, I get free health care, whatever, and all that. They're not there serving us. If that's not their primary function, it almost seems. I mean, and then they get elected and they figure they can be there for life because there are no term limits.
I'm going to talk about term limits or about what I hope I can do when I go to Washington. Then, with respect to the ability to change things in Washington, the only way you change things in Washington under our democratic process is you have to, each state has to represent enough representatives with these type of principles in mind to change it. Now the Democrats did that. They took over the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They even had the 60-vote majority, and they had the ability to pass laws that only they felt was the right way to go. There's a movement, though. I mean, the Scott Brown election, along with the one in Virginia and New Jersey, there's a movement out there to bring us back to the core conservative values that so many people here in Nevada, here in the country, feel is so important. There's a movement to get more people involved there. I believe that is why myself, who is not elected right now, is the front runner in this U.S. Senate race against the Senate Majority Leader. It's because they want somebody with new ideas that's going to go back to Washington, D.C. and represent the people in the state first. And there's enough places around the country where this is happening that hopefully we're going to get enough votes in there to make a difference. With respect to term limits, as a public servant, I will represent your interests. Almost everywhere I go, people want term limits. And if that is the case, I will go back there and be willing to co-sponsor that legislation. Just understand when you have term limits, the benefits you get from that is you get the long-term entrenched politicians out of there. Otherwise, that's always my line. I like Harry Reid. But the other problem you do have with that, you got to be careful, is in the federal legislature, we're dealing with national security and national defense issues, and you want to be very careful you don't have a bunch of new people in there making these decisions and not have the experience. But whatever the public that I'm representing wants, I will represent that in Washington, D.C. and be a strong advocate for it.
Question that doesn't involve what you've been talking about is that looks like the state of Illinois will also be in play. And just out of curiosity, your feeling, how much of that is propaganda that we're hearing and how much of it is actually true?
Well, I think all of it's true. I heard yesterday boxers now admitting that her seat is in play in California, which is almost incredible. You know, what's happened now is, and there are strong feelings on both sides, okay? You got strong Republicans always going to vote Republican, strong Democrats always vote Democrats. There are independents that will make up some difference, and then the softs on each side. What's happening right now is the softs on each side and the Democrats are all realizing that our country is going down an extremely dangerous path. It's not hard to figure it out. When you have a government that picks and chooses which companies they want to survive or don't survive, when you have a government or a president that fires the CEO of a major auto industry, it's not hard to figure out when you have a healthcare system that the reform they're trying to pass, that the 70% of Americans don't want, that when we have a deficit of 14-point-some trillion now with the new debt ceiling, that something has to be done to change it. And that's where all of these groups are coming together and making normally strong Democrat strongholds in play right now. Under normal circumstances, Harry Reid would not be able to be beat here. You know, there has never been a city majority leader beat in modern American politics.
Tom Daschle.
No, Tom Daschle was a minority leader when he got beat. He was a former majority leader. There's a big difference. As a minority leader, he's not controlling those committees where he's pulling the money out. Harry's saying he's going to have $25 million to run. He'll have whatever he wants because he controls all the committees.
Well, and that's another thing here that I think is blowing his foot off, is the fact that, yes, they control both of these houses, and I get that. But it is as if the rest of the constituents in Nevada, the other 40%, don't mean anything. Don't include Republicans or conservatives because they're not worth it. I'm not going to listen to them, so I'm going to go behind a closed door so they don't even hear what's going on. And so on that, I think they're leaving out at least half the country, if not a little bit more.
It's even more because you said 40%. That may be the Republicans in Nevada, but there are 22% independents.
Right.
I mean, they basically only have 40% of the country.
Well, that's what I'm
represented.
saying, that they're not, that they're leaving us out. They're as if we don't matter. Now, I'm not saying that if the Republicans own both the houses, that this would happen, but I've never seen it happen if the Republicans own both of them. And
Well,
even the Democrats were out.
Republicans had the presidency and the House and the Senate earlier this decade, last decade, and they didn't represent. They went back to. They didn't act like conservatives, which is the basis of our party. I mean, a lot of this deficit spending was done during the early part of this century, and they paid a price for it. The Republicans voted out of office. I'm not going to sit here and defend that. I think we had to learn a lesson from those defeats. We are now, fortunately for the Republican Party, being given a second chance. We cannot blow the second chance because there won't be a third chance.
Well, what I mean is that everybody brings something to the table. Whether liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, they all bring something, we all bring something to the table. And we may not agree, but we all bring it to the table. But in this administration, at this point, I'm feeling as if they think I'm stupid and I bring nothing to them at all. I'm worthless, and I am not.
The arrogance out there is really amazing.
Absolutely.
I don't know if this is true. Anybody ever confirmed this? I read something just the other day that I think it was a Democrat legislator, spoke to Obama and said, you know, we're in trouble, buddy. We got to change this stuff. And he said, no, my popularity is a difference between now and 1994. Did anybody confirm that statement?
Yeah. It's on TV.
That sounds.
He said the difference between now and 1994 is we have meat.
Right.
Yeah, but every president, vice president, and all the legislature through psychological evaluations and stuff before they allow them to run. I'm serious.
Did you vote for
Marjorie?
That's
Yes, sir.
Question on, might have something to do with Social Security. Do you have anything,
Yeah, I just got a little warm.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
do you have any thoughts or any plans for the GAP children? You know, the ones born around like, what is it, 1922, 23?
The GAP shelter?
Yeah,
Children.
17 to 23.
1917 to
Yeah, gap
1923.
babies.
The gap baby.
Cat babies.
Those are the people that are not going to get help, Social Security because
They,
of poor Social
they
Security.
get less Social Security because they were born in that period.
And because they didn't pay into the Social Security. that's-
No, no.
They were paying in.
Because the years that they were born in, there is what they call the gap baby. And it's when the government, when Social, I wasn't here then, but almost, but not quite. First start, they made some changes in Social Security. And in those particular years, the people that were born there were not covered, so they didn't get the increases that the rest of us have. And that's what I believe this gentleman is referring to.
And, you know, there's going to be some things that I won't know, the issues that I won't know, and I would love to learn more about it. And I will freely tell you that I don't know some of these things. I'm not going to sit here and try to con you on it. I'd love to learn more after this meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my question.
You are going to talk. You're last. Do we have any other questions?
How about the Social Security? They say it's going to run out of funds.
Well, there's all these unfunded mandates that we now have, that we're now responsible, that we're going to be responsible for: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. There is no easy answer for these. We're going to face some very, very tough times. We have lived in a society that has been very me-oriented. Let's take care of the present and not worry about the future. Sort of like a Ponzi scheme, huh? We keep borrowing and borrowing. At some point, this borrowing is going to catch up to us, and someone's going to pay a price. We, as the representatives of this country, better step forward now and figure out the least painful way to get to resolve this. It's going to be painful, but at least let's figure out the least painful way. And I don't have an answer for you right now.
Thank you, Kennedy, for that.
Okay, I want to Any other questions? See,
What is your feeling on the Homeland Security and all, and your feeling on what they've done with trying those terrorists in New York?
Yeah, I thought I mentioned something about that. If I didn't, thank you so much, because I know that's a big issue that everybody asks for. See, I know we have to stop coddling the terrorists and giving them rights that only our citizens have. They don't have a right to our court systems. They don't have a right to our taxpayer attorneys, and they don't have a right to the Miranda warning. They are war criminals. They are terrorists. They should be tried in military tribunals in Guantanamo Bay and not allowed on our soil. And I believe the vast majority of Americans feel that way. Yes, sir.
One thing, and then we'll be flashing.
No, that's good. This is what it's here
Right
for.
here, locally, out in our little tiny airport out there, they're just now finishing up the fence that they've, boy, I don't know how many miles they fenced around that airport. And it's Homeland Security, and it's a 4-strand barbed wire fence in some places, and a low field fence in other places.
But it created 2 jobs.
Yeah, and but these 2 jobs that they've created, the contractor comes from Utah. It didn't do a damn thing for Nevada.
Right.
You know,
And what are they doing? I mean, who are they fencing out? A few coyotes and a couple of